Intense efforts are underway to secure a hostages for ceasefire deal, but gaps still remain. And on day 284 of the war in Gaza, 120 hostages remain in captivity. Joining us now in the studio with more on the hostages deal is member of Knesset for the Yesh Atid party, Shelly Tal Meron. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So on the one hand, we are hearing optimism from the United States that the differences between Israel and Hamas are bridgeable, a willingness from Israeli officials, Hanegbi and Dermer, to push forward a hostage deal. Yet on the other hand, we're seeing a delay in the talks that were supposed to take place this week in Qatar, in Doha. What can you tell us? I mean, do you share the optimism expressed by the United States?
Well, as you've said, it's been 284 since this war started, and we still have 120 hostages, among them 16 women. And it's high time to bring them back home, that's for sure. And, I've sat in different studios and spoke about an upcoming deal so many times. So I've learned by my lesson, and I'm very careful with what I say. But there is some sort of a sense in the air that this time it's more optimistic than before. Hopefully it will come through. Of course, we support a deal. I hate calling it a deal because this is not a business deal or a real estate deal. So I prefer calling it an agreement to save the hostages. And of course, we support such a decision from the Prime Minister. And we've even offered him a safety net in case he has problems with the extremists within his government to sign such a deal. But as we've heard from President Biden before, this is the Prime Minister's deal. He offered it. So I'm very hopeful that this time it will come through. Truly, we do not have any more time. They are dying there every single day. They're going through horrific sexual assault there. And we need to save them as soon as possible, everyone, the ones who are still living, and unfortunately, those of them who are no longer alive.
And the Prime Minister has come under some criticism for saying that there are certain red lines that he will not cross. Do you disagree with that assessment, or do you agree that there are certain red lines that Israel cannot cross?
First of all, every country in the world has red lines. There is no such thing that there are no red lines. Of course there are red lines. Having said that, I think that the decision to bring back the hostages is the most important decision for this government to make at this point. And we will have a price to pay. There is no question about it. Nobody thinks that we're going to release traffic offenders from prisons, right? We're going to release terrorists. It's horrible. It's a high price. But what is a price of a human life? How can you measure a human life and say, this is the price? This is not buying something in the supermarket. And therefore, yes, we will pay a price. But the highest price for the state of Israel is not bringing them back home, because the basic contract between a state and its civilians is protecting them. And the state of Israel has failed to do so on October 7th. Now is the time to redeem ourselves and to bring them back home and let the entire people of Israel know that the government is protecting their civilians.
And I also do want to discuss the conditions of the hostages. You mentioned especially, of course, the female hostages who are being held for over 9 months now. Now, you've been one of the few members of Knesset truly advocating and lobbying on behalf of the hostages, and under the committee that you chair, you've revealed to the world, really, some of the details of the sexual violence that the hostages are enduring, have endured, and are continuing to endure today. I mean, what can you tell us about this?
Well, I established 2 caucuses in the Knesset. The first one is for the hostages, and the second one is for people who went through sexual assault during this war. That is on October 7th, and unfortunately, right now in Gaza. And we have a lot of information and testimonies and evidence and forensic evidence showing that there was sexual assault on October 7th. And, in one of the assemblies that I held at the Knesset, we had hostages who returned, who shared with us what they went through there, what they witnessed, and what they know is happening. So we cannot ignore this situation, and it's been over 9 months. We can only imagine that these young girls might be pregnant or might even have babies there. That's a horrific thought. It's something that it's undescribable, but we have to keep that in mind. And when I heard Aviva Siegel, who is a hostage that was released, and her husband is still there, by the way, a 64-year-old woman who felt like she was the mother of some of the hostages there, the young girls. And she knows what they went through, and she saw it with her own eyes. And her heart breaks when she talks about this. And, you know, it's unthinkable. When I think about these young girls, I think about my own daughter. It could have been any one of us. It could happen to any Israeli. And we have a responsibility. And I've been speaking about this both in Israel and, you know, outside of Israel. I've been traveling Europe and other areas to discuss the hostages and to discuss the sexual assault, because the world is speaking only about Gaza. The narrative is not about October 7th. It's not about the hostages and not about the sexual assault. And so for me to bring awareness to this situation is very important. And that is why 2 months ago, I think, I established the Global Coalition to acknowledge the sexual assault as war weapons, because this is a new method of terror. These are war crimes, and we should unite with all countries around the world against this new method of terror. And fortunately, we have countries that are supporting us with this initiative, and we plan to do a lot of work in that regards. And the main purpose is to help women around the world, and among them, of course, are women hostages. And I just want to say, it's not only women who went through sexual assault. Unfortunately, it's also men. The only difference is that the women can get pregnant.
You know, we have seen really so much denial about the atrocities committed on October 7th, the sexual atrocities committed on October 7th, and of course, that are continuing with the hostages today. Do you feel that your work internationally is having an impact, is making a difference, you know, that women's rights organizations are finally coming around, are finally seeing what really took place?
That's such a great question. You know, early on in the war, when this just started and we realized what had happened, I issued letters to all organizations. I had the women members of the Knesset sign these letters that we issue to UN Women, to Me Too, to human rights organizations around the world. And they all ignored my letters, and they did not reply it. They did not condemn what Hamas has done. And they were completely silent. And Israeli women, me among them, we felt betrayed, because we would fight for women's rights before the war. I would fight together with these organizations to help out women throughout the world. And we were completely alone. Now, UN Women has issued a report in the beginning of March. It was a first step. It was too late and too little, but it's something. And I think ever since I've been traveling different countries and doing a lot of international media, I've tried to, you know, give this as much awareness as possible. That's my life mission right now. And I can tell you, when I meet ministers from around the world, I tell them, listen, when you speak about humanitarian aid in Gaza, and that's your right to do so, and it's okay, you have to speak about the humanitarian aid for our hostages. You have to speak about them too, and I've met many ministers, both here in Israel and outside of Israel, and they've done so. So sometimes when you meet these people and you request them to do things, they do it. And also, I think it's very, very important to have personal relationships with it. It's very different from watching a video or doing a Zoom meeting. When you meet the minister face-to-face, or a senator or a member of parliament, and you create this, you know, connection with them, and they want to help you out. So I think that it does have an impact, but, you know, I'm only one person. I'm from the opposition. And I wish we would have more and more people advocating for this cause, because it's very, very important.
Just one person, but making a very important difference. MK Shelly Tal Meron, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.